Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I went to a local place that just opened actually. It's a coffee place that just opened in July called Eden Coffee, or Eden Valley Coffee. And I got a iced latte on the way back from the pool because I was at the pool today. But it's been sitting in the fridge and now I'm drinking it way too late. So now that I just said all of that stuff to you, today's video is going to be my reading wrap up, but this is going to actually be for June and July because I've just been behind on a couple of things, readjusting from being overseas still and schedule and getting my life together. And I realized I didn't do my June reading wrap up, so I need to do my June reading wrap up and my July reading wrap up now. So I'm just doing both of those in this video, so this may be a little bit long. Grab a snack, grab a drink. I'm going to try to not dwell on each book too long or else this video would be very long. But that's what we're doing. So let's just go, because I don't have time to waste. The first book that I read in June was The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This is book 1 in the Stonewater Kingdom series. And honestly, I didn't know what to think of this. I really liked the first part of this book. I liked the gargoyles and the mystery elements and how it seems very sinister. You're trying to figure out what's going on. I liked the different elements with the knights and the maidens. But after the story really started to get going and the journey began and like the things that are happening that you should be interested in, I found myself not very invested in it. I think the magic elements were cool. I loved the gargoyles, like I said. For some reason, I didn't really buy into the book or love it. So it was hard for me to care because for me, I have to like be invested and buy into the story to care. And I wasn't caring about it that much, which was sad because there was like the gargoyles that I liked. But yeah, I just found myself not super invested, which when I'm not super invested, it can lead me to feeling bored a little bit. And that's kind of how I felt with this. I felt like I was just finishing it to finish it. I did succumb to the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger does intrigue me, but I'm not even sure I'm going to continue the series, to be honest, unless it gets a lot better, which was really disappointing for me because I loved and have raved about the Shepherd King duology, The One Dark Window from Rachel Gillig. So I was really looking forward to this and I ended up not really liking it. I gave it 3 stars, but I was just kind of disappointed because the bar was high for One Dark Window. I didn't explain The Night and the Moth. Essentially, she is like an oracle and they're blindfolded and then she meets this knight and she tries to figure out why all of her sisters are being murdered. Okay, the next book that I read, I had been reading this slowly on and off from an ebook from NetGalley, and I read, if you think my reading is slow, my e-reading is super slow. Because I don't do it very often because that's one of the reasons is it's really hard for me to get into. But I did end up finishing Cruel is the Light by Sophie Clark. I got this in NetGalley in exchange for my review. I like this book, but not as much as I hoped I was going to like this book. So Cruel is the Light is about, it's kind of like the Vatican City. So it's like a fantasy set in Vatican Rome. They fight and kill demons. And so it follows her, who's like a renowned demon slayer, and then this guy who is a soldier in the army that is also fighting demons, but they don't have the magical abilities. So he's kind of in the slums, and they're almost like demon fodder, which is awful. They end up crossing paths and things happen. Like I said, I like this, but not as much as I hoped I would. I love the magic system and the demon hunting aspects, as well as the setting in Rome. That was really cool. The Vatican, St. Peter's Basilica, so many good visuals, especially because I did go to the Vatican City in Rome. So when they were pointing out St. Peter's Basilica and pointing out things in the Vatican, like I could picture it. So that was kind of really cool element for me in a fantasy novel that I don't always get. Really appreciated all of those visuals and like talking about real life structures and places, even though it is a fantasy world, right? I also really liked the demon hunters and the action parts. The action was really fun. There was even like a first part of it that kind of gave me Anastasia vibes when they're on this train. But I felt like after the first part of the book that it really kind of fizzled out for me and became something else that didn't intrigue me as much. Not that it was bad, it just wasn't holding my attention like the first part of the book was. I enjoyed the characters also, like there was nothing wrong with them. Again, I felt like I wasn't connecting to them super well, or like I should have been. The action in the end got a lot more interesting, but I'm unsure how the story is going to continue. So we'll see. I'll probably continue this one. I liked the premise a lot, but it didn't hit me as much as I would have liked it to, because I had a lot of high hopes for this one. I love demon hunting stories, but it was fine. Gave it 3 stars. And then I read a book that was amazing and yet made me furious for good reasons. And that was The Making of Biblical Womanhood, How the Subjugation of Women Became Gospel Truth by Beth Allison Barr. Essentially, it just talks about all the misinformation that has been used over the years to subjugate women. And I'm gonna cry thinking about it because it makes me so mad. These are the kinds of things that are very passionate for me. And I just wanted to shout all that misinformation from the rooftops that Beth Allison Barr brings to light. And I wish I had had this book when I was writing my thesis about stuff like this. I would love to get coffee with this author. 5-star read. Highly recommend it if it's something interesting to you. And then I read Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. This is book 2 in the Into the Darkness series. This is following Nico. And I'm not going to lie, the cover punked me. Was a little bit catfishy, to be honest. I thought this would be like a bike talk romance because the Lights Out was like a mask talk romance. It is not. He does drive a motorcycle, so that's not like completely catfishy, but it is not what I thought it was going to be, which is fine, but I had different expectations. So this is following cousin Nico, and he has his own love interest, but he's a part of the mafia family, so he's got a very complicated life. This book was fine, and it was easy to read, but like I said, it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, and it didn't seem to have much of a plot, to be honest. Like, there was a little bit underlying stuff with the family, but it didn't have a ton of plot like I thought it should. So I think my expectations were high because of Lights Out. This one was fine and I enjoyed it. It wasn't bad. It's still a fun ride, fun read, easy read, fast read. But I was hoping for something else, hoping for a little bit more. And that's okay. She can write whatever story she wants. But she hinted at there's going to be a book 3, and that's very obvious who it's going to be about if you read book 2. And I will read the next book. Moving on. I also read one of Sinlin Yu's fanfictions, one of her other Hermione fanfictions. This one's super, super short. It's like, I would say a short story, not even a novella. It's very short. And it's called Marriage of Expedience. Very cute short story. Would recommend you read it if you want. It doesn't take very long at all. Would have loved there to be a little bit more development and a little bit more yearning, like the story to be a little bit longer. But for what it was good. 3 stars. And then I finished The Hard Good by Lisa Whittle, showing up for God to work in your life when you want to shut down. This book kind of ebbed and flowed for me. The topic was good and sometimes what you need to hear to do hard things. I loved how candid the author was, willing to say she struggles and had pain, and it felt real and kind of raw. So I did like it, but I think you have to be in a certain mindset to read it, if that makes sense. And then I read Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. This one, 2 kingdoms have an alliance, and one of the kingdoms is kind of shrouded in secrets. They have a lot of secrets that they hide, so the other kingdoms can't basically come up with a war strategy and take them down. And they do this marriage alliance every so often to kind of keep the peace. And so there's a marriage alliance, and it's called the Shield of Sparrows. And so the female main character's kingdom, her dad, the king, puts her in this arranged marriage with the crown prince of the other kingdom. But she actually thinks it's going to be her sister, and it changes last minute, and it's kind of a weird situation. And he brings the Guardian, which is this like legendary monster hunter, with him. So she goes to the kingdom. She's destined to marry the prince, but she's kind of maybe falling for this Guardian. And of course, there's a lot of secrets, a lot of things she doesn't know about the world, a lot of things she's discovering slowly or not discovering. There's a lot of information that's hidden from her. There's a lot of secrets. There's a lot of political intrigue. And there's also a lot of monsters. And the whole book was really interesting. I wasn't sure how I was going to like it going into it, but I ended up really enjoying it. There's a lot about this book that I liked. There's some things that I didn't. I really liked the world building, but can see how some people would view the world building as slow or the book itself as slow. But I enjoyed the time the author took to build the world, and not in a when the moon hatched type of way, but actually taking time to build the plot, build the characters up, and build the world, and show you different creatures and different magic and different problems. But it did seem like for a good portion that there are just secrets upon secrets upon secrets that you can't necessarily even see the plot because there's so many things you don't know, while the author is trying to world build and kind of get you into that place. But through that, I still was able to guess a couple major twists. I really liked Odessa, the main female character. And that while she was strong in her own right, she wasn't a force to be reckoned with. And I know that kind of sounds odd. I love those characters as well. I love those female characters. I aspire to be one of those female characters, but I liked that she wasn't overpowered. I liked that she wasn't suddenly good at fighting everyone after training with a couple of the people or whatever. Like, I liked that she tried really hard and she was strong and did have value, but she also had weaknesses and wasn't just immediately good at everything when she started training, or became this like BA warrior when she's just been training for a couple months. I liked that about her. I liked that it was a little bit different. She wasn't good at everything, and for a lot of the time she really struggles with training and with like weapons training, etc. And like I said, I like that she wasn't just immediately good at everything that she failed. I liked that she had depth. I liked that her character wasn't perfect. It was refreshing in a way. So I think that was part of it. It was just refreshing to see. But at the same time, the Guardian was a fun character to have in the story. I liked the monsters a lot. They're scary, they're interesting, they're fantastical. That was a really cool element to the world and story, and I'm curious to see how that continues to unravel, how the different elements play out in the story. Because this is book 1 in a series, I don't know if I said that. And overall, I really enjoyed this. Even though the pacing was slower at times, it didn't necessarily feel like it because I was interested. So I didn't really notice that the pacing was kind of slow because I was kind of in it. There was something lacking in the characters getting together, but I can't necessarily tell you what it is. I just felt that there was I was like, it's so close, but there's just this something missing. Maybe we'll get that something at some point. I don't know. I just really don't know why, since I liked the slow burn and the build, but something about it was off for me and didn't have me just super captivated, but I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. And then I read A Rose in Chains by Julie Soto. So this was 4.5 stars. I really, really loved this. You've heard me talk about this and why, so we'll glaze over the fan fiction parts of this, but I loved this. So this one used to be a fan fiction of The Auction. Bryony is the princess of a kingdom, and then Tovin is in the other kingdom, and he's just kind of like a high family. They're kind of a cruel family, but they went to this like magical school together. The magic system in this was really interesting, but essentially you get flashbacks back and forth. In this world, there's a war, and her family loses the war. Her brother is the chosen one, and he is killed. And then the survivors are sold in this auction to the highest bidder to become slaves, essentially. And she is sold to Tovin and his family. I did a whole book review on this, so I'm not going to get into it super in depth, but I loved it. It's interesting that this book is going to be a trilogy, so it's going to be in 3 parts. So this is obviously going to have a cliffhanger. I liked the story and the pacing and how it flowed. Flashbacks were really cool. The magic system is really cool. It's either heart magic or mind magic. Because it's part 1, it does kind of feel like things are missing. You're left with a lot of questions and not a lot of information, but I'm very excited to continue the series. I gave it 4.5 stars, like I said. Not going to get into it anymore because there's a whole review up. If you want to see more thoughts, check that out. And then I read Behooved by M. Stevenson. This is super funny. So this is a book where it's a fantasy world where there's a marriage alliance for 2 kingdoms, 2 like warring kingdoms that are trying to keep peace. So they have this marriage alliance, as you do, and the princess is married off to the prince. So they just got married. An assassin comes and tries to kill the prince, and through a series of events, a spell is cast, and the prince is cursed to be a horse by day and a man by night. And so she rides off his back because what does she do? An assassin just tried to attack them, and now he's a horse. So they ride off together, and then they kind of have this scheme where they're trying to figure out what's going on, the political plots, how to keep each other safe, and they hate each other also. So they're trying to kind of dismantle beliefs about one another and get some camaraderie and try to unite their kingdoms and get rid of these horrible assassination plots. It was really funny, easy read. Adventure, curses, humor, politics, self-love, and romance. I loved all of those elements. I liked the kind of twist of the princess needing to save the prince, and it being kind of like Swan Princess, but not really. More of a dislike to likes type of a story. And the funny elements of the horse by day, man by night elements were also very funny and enjoyable. It was more lighthearted, even with the assassination attempt, and I liked that about it. I liked that it was more lighthearted. And it felt more like it was just a fast-paced adventure and you're trying to unravel who wanted the prince dead. So it was just kind of like a fun ride. No pun intended. But it was just an enjoyable little story, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So if you're looking for a quick, fun read, I would recommend it. And then I continued The Remnant Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson, and I read The Heart of Betrayal. Can't give you a lot of thoughts about this because it's book 2 in the series. At 4 stars. I wasn't sure how it would follow up book 1, but I did really enjoy it. There are parts that do feel like a second book syndrome, but it was still very adventurous and dangerous and fun. A pretty easy read. And I liked Caden's development specifically as the character. And then I read The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Brigitte Knightley. Loved this book. 5 stars. I loved it so much that I delayed finishing it. Because you know how it's just so good that you're just like, I don't want it to be over. That was this. This was so much fun. You're following Auren and Osric, which is very confusing, but fine. She's a healer, and in this world, you're a part of lots of magical orders that you can be a part of, and she's a part of the order of healers. That's not what they're called, but you know, healers, and he's a part of the order of assassins. So they're immediately enemies. They hate each other's orders. Like, his order hates her order hates his order. It's not just a them thing, it's like a whole magical world thing. Because he's killing people and she's trying to save people. Doesn't really mix. And he ends up having an incurable disease, and he blackmails / hires and enlists her to try to save him. And she thinks it's impossible, but she deals with him, even though she doesn't even want to make a deal with him because of his order, because he's giving her money to do her research. Fantastic book. My gosh, I loved it. This was so much fun. The banter is top tier. This book was hilarious. Had some mystery elements, interesting characters. Magic system was really cool. I loved the orders and how all of that worked. It was so good. I love the way their hands are marked with their order, so you can't like hide necessarily, but the magic can be used too much, and there are costs to that. I really enjoyed this world a lot, if you can't tell. I need to do a book review on this. The fan fiction that people have read that this kind of is inspired off of, it's a completely different story. It's not the same, but Draco Malfoy and the mortifying ordeal of being in love. This is basically a completely different story. So if you thought you were going to get that exact thing in this book, no, you're not. It's very different. It's a completely different story. There may be hints of similar plot devices, but it's a very different book. I really, and part of me is to give that caveat of, I really enjoyed the bodyguard aspect of the fan fiction, but it's not the same dynamic in this book. So if you love the fan fiction like I did, just know it's a very different story. With that being said, I loved it, and I cannot wait for book 2. And this is also only a duology, so you don't have to wait a long time for like a trilogy or anything. It's only a duology, so book 2 will come out next year. I don't know when it's coming out. I'm assuming next year. Cannot wait. Read it. I loved it. 5 stars if I didn't say. Then I read Finding God's Life for My Will. His Presence is the Plan by Mike Donaghy. I really like Mike Donaghy, and I wanted to read his other books, so I did. I appreciate Mike and what he has to say, and would encourage anyone to read his books if that's your vibe, but not going to get into it other than that. And then, moving right along, I read the final book in the Remnant Chronicles. It's a trilogy. I read the final book, The Beauty of Darkness. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Again, I can't tell you much about it because it's the 3rd book in a trilogy. It was easy to read, and there was a lot of political plotting. So if you really like politics, you'd probably like this series. There were some things about this story where I wish some of it had gone differently. But overall, very good trilogy. I understand why it's hyped and why it was such like a big hitter back in the day. Really liked the story overall, even if I had wished things had been tweaked or ended up differently. Really enjoyed it. Go for it if you haven't. And I don't know why Goodreads is putting this out of order, but I also read Heir of Storms by Lauren Hamilton Murray. This is the book 1 in the Stormweaver series, and I loved this book. So in this world, if you have magic, it's elemental magic, and you can be chosen if you have elemental magic to compete in this tournament when I think it's the Emperor, when the Emperor dies, then you'll go through these tournaments and you'll become political players and potentially be the new Emperor. Crazy. So you're following the main character who has, she's a part of the like water magic, elemental magic house, and she accidentally did this like massive flooding when she was born, and it was a huge catastrophe, and so now everybody's afraid of her, and she's kind of like a bringer of doom and kind of an outcast and ostracized because of that. And she's afraid to use her magic ever since, and thinks that she doesn't have it anymore. And she ends up getting chosen to compete in the competition, and her brother is a fire wielder. All very interesting. She's also supposed to kind of be a fire wielder because of her house, because of like her family, but she's not. Well, it's kind of intriguing and mysterious, but also has the competition elements, the like trying to develop her power elements, kind of like Shadow and Bone. I think it's actually referenced as Shadow and Bone and something else, of a mixture between those. And she ends up in this tournament. I really enjoyed this book a lot more than I thought I was going to on first sight. I gave it 5 stars as well. It felt like older YA that I really love and kind of miss. And I really liked the elemental magic and the competition aspects. I love both of those things, but they were also done in a way that was really well done, to me anyway. It was also interesting to see the story unraveled and to see the growing bigger picture as a trilogy. I'm so excited to continue the trilogy. I have a new book boyfriend, Fox. He's wonderful. It did take me a minute to get going in the story. Like, it just takes a minute for the story to get going and for you to be super intrigued, but it was easy to read, and I found it getting more and more interesting the more I got into the story. The farther the story went, it gained a lot of depth, and I just became super invested and intrigued. Wait to continue the series, like I said, and see where it goes. And then on a whim, I read The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. In this, there are 2 different groups, the Cloaks and the Daggers, and the Cloaks are thieves and the Daggers are assassins. And the main character is her family. Her mom is killed by the Daggers, and she doesn't know what to do, but she was told that she could go seek refuge with the Cloaks, so she does, and she becomes a Cloak and ends up crossing paths with the Dagger that is sent to kill her, but she wants revenge on her mother's killer, and so she kind of tries to figure out a way to end the Daggers once and for all. And there's a lot of different magical elements and sinister elements. People are disappearing. There are monsters lurking about that have come out of seemingly nowhere. So there's a lot of things that you're trying to figure out what's going on with it in the midst of her other revenge plot. This was also very good. There was tragedy, ruthlessness, grief, yearning, and banter. I enjoyed this. This is also one it took me a bit to get into it, but then once I did, I found myself pretty immersed. I liked the magic system a lot and how it can be more sinister. That was a really cool aspect of it. I liked that it has a cost. Magic with a cost is always like a good combination. I like the mysterious elements, even though I guessed one of the twists really early on. This is one of those books where everything seems to wrap up, and then you realize you have like an hour or an hour and a half left of the audiobook, and you're like, uh-oh. So you have to like brace yourself for tragedy. It's kind of one of those. Like, you just know something's gonna happen, right? Well, indeed, something happened, and I'm looking forward to continuing the series, but I gave this 4 stars. And then I picked up The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. I really liked the spell shot by this author and was very excited to read this one because it was full of magical sentient plants. And I knew that was going to be it, and indeed that's what it delivered, and I was very excited. That's what I was in it for. Essentially, you're following there was a woman that made Kaz, the first sentient plant in the spell shop, and then because she did that with magic, she was cursed to become a statue, and she wakes up on this island, and it's abandoned except for her and this other kind of grumpy gardener fella, and they're trying to fix these greenhouses where the magic has failed and wake up a bunch of sentient plants. I loved all the magical plants. Super cute, cozy fantasy vibes, revolving around magical plants and restoring greenhouses with spells. If that sounds like your vibe, give it a shot. It was great. 3.5 stars. And then I read Between These Broken Hearts by Lexi Ryan. This is the second book in it's in these Hollow Vows series, but this is the second book in the duology following Jazz, who's the little sister in the first duology. So I can't give you a lot of information about this, but I did really like this, possibly more than the first book in the duology following the sister. The drama was high and there was a lot at stake. It felt like in the first book where there's a lot of mystery and build up, this is a lot of adventure and scary and danger and a lot of things that need to happen. It felt intense and I liked how it all played out and overall enjoyed it. I think if I had to compare the first duology, These Hollow Vows, to this one. I definitely like the first one more, but I liked the depth of this one, and there's darker and edgier parts of this one, dealing with mental health and thoughts of wanting to die and overall darker themes of not valuing one's own life. So they each have merit in different ways. But I would say if you really liked the first duology, you should try this one. But the elements are very different, and there's a lot of things you have to deal with in these. I gave it 4 stars. But that was the last book that I finished in July. I know we've been here for a while, so I apologize, but I would love to know one of your favorite reads from June or July, if you want to leave it in a comment down below. But as for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.